No one expected any of you to survive here." The commander wiped at his swollen lips, wincing, and an almost childlike petulance came into his tone. "You weren't supposed to survive." "I know," he said again. "We've made it a point to remember that." "The gravity, the heat and cold and fever, the animals. Why didn't they kill you?" "They tried," he said, "but we fought back. And we had a goal, to meet you Gurns again. You left us on a world that had no resources, only enemies who would kill us, the gravity, the prowlers, the unicorns. So we made them our resources. We adapted to the gravity that was supposed to kill us, and became stronger and quicker than Gurns. We made allies of the prowlers and unicorns who were supposed to be our executioners, and used them tonight to help us kill Gurns. So now we have your ship." "Yes, you have our ship." Through the unwillingness to believe on the commander's face and the petulance, there came the triumph of vindictive anticipation. "The savages of Ragnarok have a Gurn cruiser, but what can they do with it?" "What can we do with it?" he asked, almost kindly. "We've planned for 200 years what we can do with it. We have the cruiser, and 60 days from now we'll have Athena. That will be only the beginning, and you Gurns are going to help us do it." For 6 days the ship was a scene of ceaseless activity. Men crowded it, asking questions of the Gurn officers and crew, and calmly breaking the bones of those who refused to answer, or who gave answers that were not true. Prowlers stalked the corridors, their cold yellow eyes watching every move the Gurns made. The little mockers began roaming the ship at will, unable any longer to restrain their curiosity, and confident that the men and prowlers would not let the Gurns harm them. One mocker was killed then, the speckle-faced mocker that could repeat messages verbatim. It wandered into a storage cubicle where a Gurn was working alone, and gave him the opportunity to safely vent his hatred of everything associated with the men of Ragnarok. He broke its back with a steel bar and threw it, screaming, into the disposal chute that led to the matter converter. A prowler heard the scream, and an instant later the Gurn screamed, a sound that died in its making as the prowler tore his throat out. No more mockers were harmed. Only one Ragnarok boy was killed. 3 fanatical Gurn officers stole knives from the galley and held the boy as hostage for their freedom. When their demands were refused, they cut his heart out. Lake cornered them a few minutes later and, without touching his blaster, disemboweled them with their own knives. He smiled down upon them as they writhed and moaned on the floor, and their moans were heard for a long time by the other Gurns in the ship before they died. No more humans were harmed. They discovered that operation of the cruiser was relatively simple, basically similar to the operation of Terran ships as described in the textbook the original Lake had written. Most of the operations were performed by robot mechanisms, and the manual operations, geared to the slower reflexes of the Gurns, were easily mastered. They could spend the 40-day voyage to Athena in further learning and practice, so on the 6th day they prepared to depart. The unicorns had been given the freedom they had fought so well for, and reconnaissance vehicles were loaned from the cruiser to take their place. Later there would be machinery and supplies of all kinds brought in by freighter ships from Athena. Time was precious, and there was a long, long job ahead of them. They blasted up from Ragnarok on the morning of the 7th day, and went into the black sea of hyperspace. By then the Gurn commander was no longer of any value to them. His unwillingness to believe that savages had wrested his ship from him had increased until his compartment became his control room to him, and he spent the hours laughing and giggling before an imaginary view-screen, whereon the cruiser's blasters were destroying, over and over, the Ragnarok town and all the humans in it. But Narth, who had wanted to have them all tortured to death for daring to resist capture, became very cooperative. In the control room, his cooperation was especially eager. On the 20th day of the voyage, they had let him have what he had been trying to gain by subterfuge: access to the transmitter when no men were within hearing distance. After that, his manner abruptly changed. Each day his hatred for them and his secret anticipation became more evident. The 35th day came, with Athena 5 days ahead of them, the day of the execution they had let him arrange for them. Stars filled the trans-dimensional view-screen, the sun of Athena in the center. Humboldt watched the space to the lower left, and the flicker came again. A tiny red dot that was gone again within a microsecond, so quickly that Narth in the seat beside him did not see it. It was the quick peak of another ship, a ship that was running invisible with its detector screens up, but which had had to drop them for an instant to look out at the cruiser. Not even the Gurns had ever been able to devise a polarized detector screen. He changed the course and speed of the cruiser, creating an increase in gravity which seemed very slight to him, but which caused Narth to slew heavily in his seat. Narth straightened, and he said to him, "Within a few minutes we'll engage the ship you sent for." Narth's jaw dropped, then came back up. "So, you spied on me?" "One of our Ragnarok allies did. The little animal that was sitting near the transmitter. They're our means of communication. We learned that you had arranged for a ship en route to Athena to intercept us and capture us." "So, you know?" Narth asked. He smiled, an unpleasant twisting of his mouth. "Do you think that knowing will help you any?" "We expect it to," he answered. "It's a battleship," Narth said. "It's 3 times the size of this cruiser, the newest and most powerful battleship in the Gurn fleet. How does that sound to you?" "It sounds good," he said. "We'll make it our flagship." "Your flagship? Your flagship?" The last trace of pretense left Narth, and he let his full and rankling hatred come through. "You got this cruiser by trickery, and learned how to operate it after a fashion because of an animal-like reflex abnormality. For 42 days you accidental mutants have given orders to your superiors and thought you were our equals. Now your fool's paradise is going to end." The red dot came again, closer, and he once more altered the ship's course. He had turned on the course analyzer, and it clicked as the battleship's position was correlated with that of its previous appearance. A short yellow line appeared on the screen to forecast its course for the immediate future. "And then?" he asked curiously, turning back to Narth. "And then we'll take all of you left alive back to your village. The scenes of what we do to you and your village will be televised to all Gurn-held worlds. It will be a valuable reminder for any who have forgotten the penalty for resisting Gurns." The red dot came again. He punched the battle station's button, and the board responded with a row of ready lights. "All the other Gurns are by now in their acceleration couches," he said. "Strap yourself in for high acceleration maneuvers. We'll make contact with the battleship within 2 minutes." Narth did so, taking his time as though it was something of little importance. "There will be no maneuvers. They'll blast the stern and destroy your drive immediately upon attack." He fastened the last strap and smiled, taunting assurance in the twisted unpleasantness of it. "The appearance of this battleship has very much disrupted your plans to strut like conquering heroes among the slaves on Athena, hasn't it?" "Not exactly," Humboldt replied. "Our plans are a little broader in scope than that. There are 2 new cruisers on Athena, ready to leave the shops 10 days from now. We'll turn control of Athena over to the humans there, of course. Then we'll take the 3 cruisers and the battleship back by way of Ragnarok. There we'll pick up all the Ragnarok men who are neither too old nor too young and go on to Earth. They will be given training en route in the handling of ships. We expect to find no difficulty